Welcome to Pilgrim United Church of Christ in Birmingham, Alabama. In ordinary times, my congregation would hear, whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, you're welcome here. These are not ordinary times, and there's not very many here right now, but we're delighted that you are here with us. And since this is the season of Lent, we would normally be doing things in purple like this and having Lenten messages. But we have designated this the first Sunday of non-ordinary time. And throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we will be having our services in this season until we are able to be together again in person. So I invite you to worship along with us. Our service is going to be a bit different from our normal service, but we'll have many of the elements that you are familiar with. Let us begin our worship.
God is still speaking through Madeline Lingle in A Circle of Quiet. There's a lovely Talmudic story that when the children of Israel reached the Red Sea and Moses struck his staff on the shore, the waters of the sea did not part to let them through. The Israelites stood there at the edge of the water and nothing happened until one of them plunged in. Then the waters rolled back.
time, at this moment in our worship, we would ask for prayer of praise and gratitude, as well as prayers of concern. But since we don't have any of those this morning, and I invite you to send them in for coming weeks so that we may do that as well, this morning I'm going to share with you a prayer for a pandemic. This is by Cameron Wiggins Bellum. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those who have no safe place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. As fear grips our country, let us choose love during this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other. So let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbor. For we offer our gratitudes, our prayers, our concerns, in the name of Jesus who taught us to pray. Our God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy dominion come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the dominion, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Let us offer our reverence for the word from God found in the 5th chapter of Ephesians. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in God. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. And find out what pleases God. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret, but everything is exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. That is why it is said, "Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." Listen for the word from God.
Thanks be to God.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise God, all creatures here below. Praise God for all that love has done. Creator, Christ, and Spirit one. Amen.
Throughout this season of Lent, you have noticed that we have relied heavily on the metaphors of light and shadow and darkness. These are metaphors of illumination, not pigmentation. But it is important to acknowledge that even when we use these metaphors in appropriate ways, the stain of ancient bias can still cling to them. That is one of the reasons we have been intentional this Lenten season to link these metaphors. May shadow reveal our light. May the light shine in the darkness. The aspects of our lives that tend to block the light of God's grace often offer us greatest insight into what is happening in our spirits. So just as light is essential to spiritual health as people of faith, so too are our shadows. If we pretend that they are not there, then they become powerfully influential in our thinking, our perception, our decisions, our attitudes, even without our consent. You see, once we acknowledge the shadows that cling to our lives, then we regain the ability to diminish their power to control. You see, one of the powerful aspects of the metaphor of light is that light always casts shadows when it encounters something that resists its penetration. And we know that different materials respond to light differently. When light encounters a clear piece of glass, it passes through with hardly any diminishment. When light encounters a prism, it's broken into a rainbow of colors and beauty. And when light encounters solid resistance, it casts shadows. Shadows would not exist without the light's presence. Shadows mark where we are resisting light, so that we can then recognize those moments and address them. Shadows give us a clue where we must resist the entities and the realities of our lives that continue to cast shadows, both personally and collectively. So in this reading from Ephesians, shadow is a double-pronged metaphor. It tells us where we are blocking God's healing light in our own lives, and it reveals where we as a society, as a culture, have healing ministry to do in our world. That is why Ephesians calls us to be children of light. Another way to say this is that when we are instruments of God's grace in our world, we are being light. We are embodying light. And that, therefore, we can welcome the awareness of shadow. You see, the epistle to the Ephesians is the only place I have found in the Bible that speaks of this relationship in exactly this way. I mean, other parts of the Bible mention how light dispels darkness, but Ephesians alone says that light reveals shadow, which exposes where we are resisting the light. It is a subtle but important use of the metaphor of our Lenten journey, and a metaphor for our non-ordinary journey. You know, here at Pilgrim, we have a variety of groups that use our space for meetings and for information and for sustenance and for helping each other cope with whatever is happening in our lives. And a couple of those meetings deal around the issue of race. We have both a Racist Anonymous group that meets on Friday nights, and we have a white privilege group that meets ever so often in our building. And at both of those kinds of groups, one of the things that often happens is that those of us who participate in these groups will say something like, "My name is Paul, and I am a racist." And I found myself at these meetings realizing that I'm resisting claiming that truth for myself. You see, I want to believe that God's grace has illuminated my life so that I can release those ancient prejudices and animi that cling to all of us. And even though I believe I've made great strides in ridding my life of racist assumptions, I am still stained by racism. I can pretend otherwise, but my shadows are not revealing that a light is shining on them if I take that approach. One of the things I have learned from my own sense of personal shadow is how they have more to teach me than simple personal animus. You see, so often we pretend that our shadows don't exist when we say, oh, I have a friend who is a person of a different race, or I am friendly with people of all races. I welcome everyone. But that is not dealing really with the biggest shadow that light is revealing to us. You see, shadows reveal how light is denied more dangerously on a far greater scale than simply personal. You see, I participate in a culture that perpetuates slavery by the way our judicial system targets some and privileges others. I benefit from that system, so I am a racist. I participate in a culture that perpetuates the idea that men are more valuable than women. I benefit from that system, so I am a sexist. I participate in a culture that values heterosexuality as more valuable than queer people. Personal closets don't protect from the stain of heterosexism. You see, when I benefit from that system, I am homophobic, even as a gay man. All of us are here because we want to be in recovery from the stains and the shadows of our world. All of us are part of congregations like Pilgrim that want to change those shadows into opportunities to gain more light. And yet all of us bear the scars that come from those shadows. When I am willing to show you mine, you will be freed up to reveal your own. You know, the brilliant Henry Nouwen called it being wounded healers. From our own awareness of woundedness, we have discovered healing. And from our own shadows, we have turned to the light. You know, this is our life journey together. Offering healing to the wounds of others while we allow others to offer healing to our own wounds. Offering awareness to each other so that our own times of personal blindness can be healed. It is evidently a remarkable way to approach Christianity. You know, many of our friends approach their faith simply as a way to be washed clean, for example. I believe the original was white as snow. But great writers like Ephesians and Nouwen and many others all concur that it is precisely in recognizing our shadows that we become beings of light. You see, those shadows can reveal abundance of empathy and resonance of experience that allows shadows to become then the instruments of the light rather than an obstacle to it. So the outcome of this idea is this. Our shadows are abundant in God's grace and healing. Exploring those aspects of our culture, our world, our lives, our relationship offers us an opportunity to experience God's presence in new and powerful ways. And it is one of the most powerful lessons from Lent. And I believe it is also going to be one of the most powerful lessons during our non-ordinary time as well. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope these moments have been helpful. We are still a work in progress learning how to do this new way of being in non-ordinary time. And so, I welcome your feedback. I want to thank John Williams and Dr. John Owen and Mark David Jackson for assisting in worship today. And if you would like to be a part of an upcoming worship experience in this arena, I invite you to contact us through the email, Facebook, and website address, or call the church number. It is hopefully on your screen. And you can also be a part of these worship experiences that we present to our greater community. A few announcements before we go, and that is that the United Church Center that hosts both Pilgrim Church and Covenant Community Church is currently at stage 4 of our COVID-19 protocols. That means that there are no gatherings happening in our building that are over 10 people. And so that means most activities in person now are being curtailed. But we want to maintain our opportunity of communion and community through these kinds of opportunities that we're sharing online. As a result of what is going on in our world, it is likely that we will continue our non-ordinary season for the foreseeable future, including past our Holy Week and Easter time. So just be aware of that. We want to make sure that during this time that we continue to maintain contact with each other. So there are a variety of ways to do that. One is that we produce a monthly newsletter called Pilgrim Progress, and you can submit articles or prayers or poems or anything you'd like to share with others. Send those to the church office by Tuesday of next week. I believe that will be March 25th or 24th. The correct date will be on your screen. Also, if you want to give your offerings to Pilgrim, remember there are a lot of ways to do that. You can mail your offerings into the mailbox. You can send them via our website. There's an electronic version there. You can also do it by PayPal and other forms that are available to you. If you have any questions about that, please contact me at the church office. I am in the church office Monday through Thursdays from 9 until 4. The church number is area code 205-731-0999. And my personal email address where you can always contact me is peknestucker@gmail.com. Thank you for being with us today, and I look forward to seeing you in our next Sunday of Non-Ordinary Time.